A Marine is characterized as one who possesses the highest of military virtues. He obeys all orders, respects his seniors, and strives constantly to be the very best at everything he does. Discipline and spirit are the hallmarks of a Marine. You too can become a Marine if you develop discipline and spirit. We will give every effort to train you, even after some of you have given up on yourself. You're listening to Two Marines, One Mic.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Two Marines, One Mic. As always, I'm Phil.
This is Wade.
And we're your hosts. What? Bow, 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 bow. I keep counting the episodes, man. I get like so caught up in Wade's like laughing. He's like counting the episodes. I don't know what episode we're on, man, but we're super happy to have Phil Daru with us today. Phil, what's happening, man?
What's going on, guys? Today is believe it or not, it's kind of my off day right now since I'm competing on Friday. So I'm taking a little bit of a rest day, and usually that doesn't happen, so that's good.
Powerlifting? What do you?
Yeah. I got a powerlifting meet on Friday, so trying to get some type of rest. But I don't mind talking to you guys, though. It's all good.
Thank you so much, man. No, it's really cool, man, that you spent some time with us, dude. And I know you got some awesome other podcasts on your belt, man. So we're super, super grateful to have you with us, man. Spend some time. But
Sure.
Before we go any further, guys, we have a purpose behind our podcast, and Wade's good at telling us the purpose.
The purpose of this podcast is to give you, the listener, and today, the viewer, information, skills, and tools that we learn in the Marine Corps that if you apply to the civilian world, it could ultimately improve the quality of your life.
Yeah, man. Cool. So we, Phil, we do that every episode, man, and we listen to a lot of your videos, at least I did, and we watched the podcast with
James DeFranco.
James DeFranco?
Joe DeFranco? Yeah.
Joe DeFranco. Joe. Big podcast show, too. And I think what we want to get into a little bit, if you don't mind, is kind of the mindset of the athletes that you train in. Before we go there, I'll let you do a little introduction, what you do professionally and what you love to do like on the side.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I've been training and competing in mixed martial arts for about 10 years now. I work with probably the most elite fighters in the world over at American Top Team. Been doing that for roughly, give or take. And then I started the head job there as a strength and conditioning coach in the past 3 years. So been at American Top Team pretty much all my life fighting and competing. Now I coach with them. I play college football. I pretty much did any athletic sport you could imagine. Done bodybuilding at one time, believe it or not. Strongman. I do powerlifting. I do BJJ tournaments. So I compete in everything that I possibly can just to stay active, And after I was done, being a professional fighter, after I retired, I just needed to fill that void. And the great thing about being a coach now is I could still stay in the sport that I love, that I grown accustomed to, that I felt that I resonated with those types of individuals more or less, and was able to pretty much utilize what I've learned as a fighter and put that into practice as a coach. So that's what I'm doing as of right now. Got roughly around 62 fighters that I train on top of all my other stuff that I got going on. I have my own podcast, Fight Strength Podcast, YouTube stuff, programs online, just doing it all as much as I possibly can.
That's cool. So I think that's got to offer like a huge advantage for all those fighters that are American Top Team, because like when I watch the 24/7 countdown on all the boxing stuff, like they bring in like the strength coach, but typically the strength coach does not have a background in fighting. It's just the strength and conditioning coach, but you understand the sport, you competed in the sport, and you have a background in all the training components. So that's got to be like super advantageous to all those guys that are at American Top Team.
It's good. I mean, a lot of them remember me as a kid. I used to go down there and train. So I fought at 155 pounds. So I'm about 215 now. So when they look at me, they're like, man, you grew up in both ways. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it is a good thing because they understand that I know the process, and that process that I can resonate towards as far as knowing how they feel on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, know how they feel when they're weight cutting, and know that a lot of things are riding on this fight coming up that they have, especially with the world champions that I coach, Ioane and Jacek, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barbosa, Junior Dos Santos. All these people are at the highest level of the sport. And the I guess the overall anxiety factor becomes a big issue there because, man, it's their life. You know, if they don't win this fight, they don't eat. And a lot of times, you know, with a lot of fighters coming up, you know, they fight in the regional scene and things like that. The level of importance for you, you know, winning a fight and being dominant, you know, it's going to be important, but not as important as these individuals that I coach. So it is a lot more intense when you're talking about getting somebody ready, because at the end of the day, you know, like I said, if they don't win, you know, if they could potentially lose out on their dream, which is obviously being a UFC fighter, a Bellator fighter, whatever the case may be. But the major promotion fighters, and then obviously the champions, you know, that's a level. That you have to have a mindset there that I see that kind of separates a lot of the regular good athletes to the great ones.
Sure, man. And that's exactly where I kind of want to go to this conversation, was like the mindset behind the people that you're training right now. You said that it's easier for you, like your champs like fight and they know what the training's going to entail. And I have a feeling that even some of those fighters on any given day are going to be like, Phil, I don't want to fucking do it, man. Like, I don't want to fucking do it. Yeah. How do you push them? How do you motivate them through those times where it's just like, it hurts fucking too much, I don't want to fucking go any further? Because not only is
champions
it
never say that.
Yeah. Or do they tell you
it's more along the lines of me actually having to pull them back.
Wow.
Because I know how they're going to be, I know how they're going to act. And don't get me wrong, they understand their body more than anyone now, you know, especially the ones that have been in this game for 10, 20 years.
Sure.
I really have to almost, you know, make sure that they are training. I always say train optimally, not maximally in any sense, especially when you're a professional fighter. But I never really have a problem with motivating my athletes, just because they're self-motivated in itself. They wouldn't be in the position that they're in if they didn't have that ability. Now, with that being said, I got my young kids that are the regional scene guys, or, you know, just on the come up, and they really almost have too much talent to the point where they think that they don't really have to work hard. And when that starts to happen, then we have to make sure that we are reiterating, you know, proper balance, but also you have to get in there and make it happen, you know. And if you want to be where you want to be, you want the end goal and that vision to where when you started to be successful, then you have to put in the work, and you have to put in diligent work. You have to be consistent, and you have to make sure that you stay patient. And that's the problem with a lot of the young kids nowadays, are not so patient. So that's why I always say, and we talked about this before when we met, but we resonate a lot with Gary Vaynerchuk, you know, when he talks about being patient. And it's true with everything you do. But with my fighters, man, they see their teammates now, because they're in the same gym with them, you know, winning world championship belts, you know, getting all of the accolades and doing commercials and things like that. And they want that. But at the end of the day, you don't know what it took for them 10 years ago, at day in, day out, you know, putting in the work. And the same thing goes for these young kids that start in coaching. When they, you know, I get DMs and I get messages and emails all the time, you know, where do I start, or where should I go? I want to be where you're at. And I'm like, man, first of all, you know, I was training like soccer moms in a 800 square foot like storage closet when I was 19, 20 years old, fresh out of college. So at the end of the day, it took me a long time to get where I'm at today. So you got to be able and be willing to put in the work.
Yeah, dude. People don't see the work that you put in the dark, dude. And that brings up an awesome like leverage point, and not just for mixed martial arts fighters, but for anybody that's trying to go to the next level in whatever it is that you're doing. You know, if you want to be the best fucking basket weaver of all time, you're gonna have to put in some fucking basket weaving time. You know, it doesn't come overnight. Like, nobody's born, you know, a championship fighter. Like, it's just it's not a thing. Like, people have God-given talent for sure.
Yeah.
But there is so much work that people don't see that's going in all hours of the day, night, for years at a time. That's like, then you get the DMs. Hey, Phil, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach for the UFC like you. I want to work with the best people in the world like you do. It's like, cool, man. You have every opportunity to do that. You just need to put as much or more work than I fucking did in.
Yeah. I mean, people really don't understand that it's not just like a once in a while thing. You know, when I'm done here, you're always learning. You always have to evolve. You always have to learn new modalities and new subject matters. especially when you're talking about coaching, but that could be anything though, right? If you're trying to be good at a specific, trait, or let's say on your job or anything like that, you have to understand how to get better and learn, teach, and grow. And from there, that's where you're going to be able to put yourself in the right place to be progressive and to be successful. But at the end of the day, it takes constant grind, and in the right ways too, because you could grind and not do shit. You know what I mean? You could grind all the wrong ways and not get nothing done. You know what I mean? You could be working, and I don't, no disrespect to any, servers or waitresses or waiters are out there, but like you could be putting in work there, but is that really your end goal? Is that really your true vision that you see yourself doing for the rest of your life? And you got one life. So understand that I know you want to do something better.
Of course.
So you have that time. Yes, you need to work, you need to make money, but you also need to put in the work afterwards to make sure you're progressing and getting your true goal accomplished.
That's where the separation is.
Yeah, I think even a better analogy than that, since we're all fitness guys, is put in the work in the gym, but be doing all the wrong shit for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, for sure. And that's somewhere I try to stop, man. I try to stop the wrong things from happening, and that's a big misconception, especially with combat sports and strength and conditioning, is that for a long time they were training all the wrong things, and trying to do things that they see on TV or whatever, or maybe like what's the new fad of the week or something like that. But at the end of the day, you have to understand the athlete, you have to understand your circumstances and situations, and then you can properly put together a plan of action to get the job done. And that goes for everything in life.
Yeah, go ahead.
So specifically, since you have world-class guys there, champions in their respective sport, does American Top Team, or do the athlete take it upon themselves to do any like actual mindset training?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a sports psychologist that actually went to high school with me, and he does help out with that. His name is Nick Davenport, and he's Mr. Mental Muscle on Instagram. If you guys want to check him out, but he started with Dustin Poirier, and he'd be a good guy to have on the podcast too, by the way. But
what was it
Mr. Mental Muscle?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Got him.
And he started. The funny thing was Dustin was trying to get into more, of a psychological advantage, more of a cognitive advantage. And he called me up and he was like, "Man, I really want to start doing this." And I was like, "That's funny because, like I said, my guy Nick, he just hit me up like maybe 2 days before that, asking if I had any athletes he wanted to work with." So it just kind of worked out that way. So when Dustin was going to fight Anthony Pettis, we brought him in for the camp. And it just so happened that the UFC Countdown show was there. So we got to broadcast everything as he did it. So, basically, yeah. And you'll see all of his stuff that he does, but it's more along the lines of confidence and hand-eye coordination and understanding depth perception. But also, for me, it gives us a change of pace from the physicality of training, right? So he's actually being able to still train, but not beat his body up.
Right.
So I think that's a major thing when you're talking about true variability of the training, and so that you can understand how to be truly dominant from all angles, not just from a physical standpoint or a technical and tactical standpoint.
Dude, I think that incorporating any sort of like you said, mental conditioning, especially for a combat sport. I mean, when I was in the Marine Corps, dude, we do some sort of mental mind games. We call them Kim's games, being able to remember stuff, being able to pick up small little details.
Yeah.
I think I talked about this in episode 1, where we would actually go out to do like PT, to do physical training, boots and utes. We'd go out into the we call it the backyard, where there's like mountains and a bunch of trails and stuff. And so we'd bring out like a backpack just full of random shit, like pencils, pens, magazines, bullets, keys, what have you, notebooks open to like pages. And before we start training, you'll get 60 seconds to look at all of the objects that are laid out on this tarp.
Gotcha.
No notes, no nothing. You get to look at them for 60 seconds, remember as much detail as you possibly can. Yeah. After getting your ass slayed for like an hour, running up and down the mountains, doing a ton of PT, you come back and the all the stuff that was on the tarp's covered with another tarp. Whoever can remember the most detail about all of these items gets to go home for the rest of the day. Like, you're done with work, and start doing these things to constantly train your mind to pick up the smallest, minute little detail, dude. It's like, hey, cool. Oh, you remember the notebook was there, but what did it say on the first page of the notebook?
Yep. Yeah, we have a similar thing. It's called pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll have them hit pads, or we'll have them go maybe do like a prowler push and have them slightly fatigue, and then they have to come back and reiterate whatever we said to do as far as like from a pattern perspective. So it could be colors, it could be words, it could be numbers, whatever the case. But we try to get them slightly fatigued and have them think while they're slightly fatigued. So that's actually a really good thing when you're talking about combat sports and fight sports in general. Like MMA, man, you need to make sure that you're constantly able to think while you're a little bit tired, at least, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of it tired. I mean,
yeah. I try to make sure that we aren't a lot tired in a fight, but
exactly. But sure, man, and you're good. I mean, dude, mixed martial arts. I don't care who your trainer is. There's going to be some level of like physical exasperation. Like you are going to be exhausted at the end of the fight. Oh, yeah. And if you're not exhausted at the end of the fight, then your trainer is going to be like, dude, you didn't give it your all. Right? Yeah. And you're going to do that too.
At some points, you got to kind of dig deep, and it has really nothing to do with your overall conditioning.
Nothing.
It has to do with the level of intensity of the fight, you know, and your opponent too. If you have a tough opponent, obviously, and lots riding on that situation, anxiety becomes a big factor. And then also understanding, you guys probably knew this, bar none, you know, over everybody, that you have to be efficient in your energy, especially when, you know, very intense, you know. So at the end of the day, that's where they have to be better, you know, and that's something that is psychological in a way, but it's also technical, you know. So they got to understand how to properly perform their techniques, like I said, when it gets to be very intense, especially with the UFC guys.
Absolutely, dude. And that's something that can be applied anywhere. Just efficiency, right? Time management, the way you're using your physical energy, where you're spending your brain time. You know, that's things that are, you know, comparable in a fight to sitting behind a desk in a corporate office.
Yeah.
Where are you wasting your time? Where are you wasting your energy?
Yeah. So when these guys are in a camp, how much does the training vary from when they're not in camp?
Well, it's funny because in mixed martial arts, there is really no off season. So they're training nonstop. Obviously, we pick up the frequency when they're not in camp because all the other skills, tactical, technical training, they kind of put that off. It's more obviously as an importance in camp. So once they're out of camp, then we can start really honing in on their physicality, work on their speed, their power, their strength, build a little bit of muscle, a little bit of joint integrity, get their overall fitness up. And what I like to call building a base. Right? We're trying to build a base, like, you know, as far as when you're talking about a pyramid, it's only as wide as the width of its base. So we're trying to build the pyramid as wide as we possibly can. So when they start camp, we can build vertically. So at the end of the day, they're going to be doing a lot more frequency off camp. And that's usually anywhere more than 8 weeks out. Once 8 weeks out starts, that's when like the skills training really starts to pick up. And then I have to kind of taper down the overall frequency of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, because it's a delicate balance because you want them to be stronger, but not heavier.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's hard for us to even gain a lot of muscle mass because they're doing a lot of conditioning. Yeah. And that's not just from me, that's all the other skills training that they're doing. So they would have to eat a lot of food, and they would have to train a lot more in the larger volume range and in the right intensities too. Right. So if I do like 40 to 50% of maximal effort and you're doing 20 to 30 rep sets, chances are you're really not going to build. I know it sounds crazy, but you're not going to build a lot of hypertrophy because the load isn't as heavy. When the load gets somewhat submaximal, when you're talking maybe 65 to 75%, now that's in the hypertrophy range. Yeah. When it's anywhere lower than that, the load isn't high enough to induce maximal hypertrophy. So what we usually use that as is more of a joint restoration and overall strength endurance, you know, component when you're talking about those higher rep sets, very lightweight, a lot of reps. And yeah, you may build a little bit of muscle, especially for the ones that really have never been in the weight room. And those are almost 85% of my fighters, you know. So they're going to adapt, and they're obviously going to get some adaptations from that, and their muscles are going to get a little bit bigger just because their body, it's new to them. You know what I mean? So, but there is a fine balance. They're not going to grow out of their weight class. And usually we have a great weight cutting, protocol for that. We work a lot with Lockhart and Leith, and you guys kind of, two Marines there that are very efficient in cutting weight. And so, I mean, those guys help us out. I have an assistant, Eric Pena, that you guys know very well.
Love Eric, man. That's one of the most incredible kids I've met in a long time.
I know. Hey, listen, he's getting a lot of love, man. He was on. I talked about him on my podcast. He's working with Conor McGregor right now, cooking for him.
Oh yes, yes.
Hey, listen, we gotta keep. I'm gonna keep him for a little bit, but he might get too big for me. He might have to leave in a little bit.
Dude.
So he's doing well, man.
You know why, man? Because he learns and he cares so much, dude.
Yeah.
Eric's probably in like fucking better physical condition than all of us, and he just keeps his fucking mouth shut.
Yeah.
And dude, I have nothing but amazing things to say about that dude, man.
Yeah, he's a great kid, man. He helps me out a lot, and he's super smart. And he's, like you said, he's willing to learn, and he loves what he does. So that's always a good thing.
Loves it.
But it's like stuff like that, man. When you have those guys around you, then I don't really have to worry about that. I can kind of delegate and use that, because honestly, at the end of the day, I really don't want to have to deal with that. You know what I mean? My job is to get them physically prepared, and I have all these other things that I have to worry about. So if I have trust and I respect the people that I can delegate that particular aspect to, then for sure I'm definitely going to do it. You know what I mean? So it just takes time off me. I can really focus on my true strengths as a coach, and we can make everything happen a lot more successful.
Of course, man. Now, do you deal with like supplementation for your fighters, or is that like a Lockhart and Leith thing? Like you guys worry about that 8 weeks out?
I mean, I'm actually sponsored by Iron Army, but at the end of the day, I usually say, if you guys have a great supplement. I used it the other day. It's cool. Awesome. Yeah, man. I mean, usually I always say, I put out a video recently on my YouTube on the best supplements that you could use, when it comes down to performance, but nothing's going to be branched chain amino acids, essential amino acids, creatine. And that's not just for ATP regeneration, but that's also, they've shown studies that it actually helps traumatic brain injury after the onset. So what I use, I'll probably tell my guys, most of them, especially Dustin, because he left, I tell him to do 2.5 grams of creatine, pre-workout or pre-sparring, because he is getting ahead those times.
Yeah.
So that we can stay sharp when we're talking about energy output, and then also he can keep his brain safe. And then from there, some caffeine post-workout to help drive glycogen back to the muscle quicker. So we do about 40 mgs of that. And nothing's going to be, some type of glucose powder, some type of glycogen that we can put back in. Yeah. So carbs, sodium, salt, pink Himalayan salt, I like a lot. 84 trace minerals in pink Himalayan salt. And and then just, your standard electrolytes. So those are my key go-tos.
So your gym up north, where's your gym up north? I'm sorry.
Stuart.
So I have two gyms. I have one in Stuart, Florida, and I have the other one in Port St. Lucie, Florida. So it's like almost 30 minutes apart from each other.
What type of facilities are those?
Personal training gyms, and also running my own MMA program out there as far as strength and conditioning goes. So I have a couple of my assistants and trainers that we're starting up doing that. And also we have boot camps and things like that. So general fitness, strength and conditioning. I work with some rugby players. I work with a little bit of high school athletes and college athletes when I'm there, when I'm available. But I also have trainers that, are under me that actually help out with those guys and girls, because I'm just kind of, actually, I'm a little spread thin, if you want to say that. With 62 fighters over there at American Top Team, and then a bunch of other guys and girls too. So, but yeah, that's what we're doing over there.
Super cool.
So
it's general fitness. So we have a lot of people that come to my gym that hear me say all the same shit for the last 10 years over and over again about the do's and don'ts of fitness. So being that you've worked around general pop, what are give us 2 or 3 top misconceptions about weight loss and getting leaner?
Well, weight loss in general is that they want to do than what they are capable of doing right out the bat. So people will say, I want to lose weight, running 5Ks, and then they end up getting hurt, right? a lot of the times you got to understand movement quality. So if they don't understand that, first and foremost, we try to reiterate proper movement quality, proper mobility, so that they have the ability and the prerequisites to actually get underneath load and move weight appropriately, and then also do their conditioning appropriately. As far as diet goes, I think a big misconception is just kind of people just think that they have to cut carbs and that's going to be the magical recipe, you know. And at the end of the day, it's way more precise than that. It's a lot. There's a lot more that goes into it. You have to get. Honestly, I like to get blood work done so I can see a true blood panel to see what's going on hormonally, right? And then from there, we can actually go ahead and start to take things out one by one to see what's going on, and then adding things too. They may not even be eating vegetables at this point. So at that point, you know, if we put something in, we take something out, we take the soda out, we put vegetables in, and oh, they lost 10 pounds. It's very simple, but it's also precise in a way. You know what I mean? It's hard to do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's easy, you know, and that's one thing that, you know, trainers have to understand is that a lot of trainers never really, I mean, some of them, most of them probably were overweight at one point and they got themselves in shape, but they use what got them in shape for everybody else, and everybody is subjective. It's individualized. So you got to understand that first. Just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for, you know, 45-year-old, you know, Nancy, who's got 3 kids and hasn't worked out or lifted weights in about 30 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely difficult. And, but I would say that understanding the person is going to be a key factor there, and not going with the trends. You know, do your research on the person, you know, find out what's going on, find out, you know, their daily schedule, what their routine is, you know, what their stress life is. Like things that, man, stress is systemic. You got kids, you got a mortgage, you got other bills you got to pay. I don't care what you do. That's going to add up, right? And that's going to add some body fat on you. So you got to understand that. You got to be able to resonate with that. And then from there, you can correlate a good training program that's going to enhance their quality of life, but also make sure that they're progressing on a daily basis. And obviously the diet needs to go hand in hand with what they need, you know, instead of, you know, just kind of cutting out carbs.
We did a another like fitness podcast just about like misconceptions and diet, like fad diets and stuff, and it ended up being the most hysterical podcast that I've ever done.
I'm sure.
But Phil, the way that we like to end our podcast is with 2 kind of questions. So the first is what we call like the mission of the day. So what we do is we institute a challenge for our listeners to partake in, at least for the week that this podcast airs, and hopefully they can adapt it and use it, you know, further on in their life than that. And what we do when we have a guest is we ask you to create a small change that our listeners can implement into their daily routine that's going to help them reach, you know, I mean, we talked a lot about fitness and like cognition in this podcast. And I mean, maybe if it's something to do with that or just something that you think everybody should implement in their life, that would help.
So I'll give you 2, but the one that I use with a lot of my interns is that I make them find at least 5 people a week, and they have to spend 5 to 10 minutes with them going up and starting a conversation. Now, it doesn't have to be about fitness, doesn't have to be about strength and conditioning, nothing that they actually know of, but go up and spark a conversation with a person. That's going to help them understand people more. You'll gain more emotional intelligence that way. You'll be less afraid to talk in public. So I would say go to at least 5 people this week or next week and find a good conversation. And it doesn't have to be anything that you like. It could be something that you want to know about that person. And then spark a conversation. Make sure it's at least 5 to 10 minutes, right? So another great thing that I always say, and honestly, it's more about, you know, if you can ask questions, you'll control the conversation. So keep asking questions, keep being engaging with that person, and that'll help that conversation out very well. The second thing is start implementing a schedule, a daily planner, right? I always say, you know, I read this book a while back. It's called Organizing Tomorrow Today. And that's something that's helped me out as far as being efficient in my time, understanding what I need to do on an hour-by-hour basis. So what you basically do is you take a day or a time in the day beforehand, you write down your most important, tasks to get done before 12 o'clock. And then everything else that you can do throughout that 12 o'clock span, all the way till you go to bed, now you have free time to knock it out. If you need to train, whatever's most important, get that done first, and then everything else can come into play. Do that every day for the next day, and every day will be taken care of.
I love it, dude. That's like the most, like, what's the word I'm looking
Practical.
for? Like, practical, like something that people can actually use and implement to make themselves better, including myself, man. That's like the power list, dude. The 5 things a day. I fucking love that shit, dude. And you're done by noon, and you're not ever done, but now you could go to bed at night and being like, hey, listen, I got my shit done today. I'm good to go for tomorrow, and I'm ready to fucking move, dude. Billboard. Wade.
Next question. What that we stole from Tim Ferriss.
Don't tell him.
This is a great question. It's a great conversational piece. If you had a giant billboard for the world to see, what would your message to the world be? It could be a quote, a mantra, a saying, a
picture,
an emoji. It could be anything.
Okay, I got one. I'm a big fan of this guy. Okay, you guys probably can understand this. But think about the scene in Gladiator. Okay, what we do in life was in eternity. I put this on all of my slides when I do seminars. This is how I start my presentation. I think that plus, with Gladiator in the background, I think that'd be awesome. But basically what I'm saying is that you have to take every day and use it to make sure that you're setting your own legacy up for the future. So your work needs to be highly efficient, and you need to work diligently. You need to do best every day to set yourself apart from the rest so that you can engrave your own legacy each and every day.
Dude, I fucking...
That's why I have "Leave Your Legacy" tattooed on my shoulder.
That's it. Phil, where can everybody find you, man? Not in person. We don't want people stalking you, but like...
So...
It's pretty safe for you.
I'm good. So my Instagram, you can usually find me there. It's Daru Strong, Daru Strong. Twitter's @Daru Strong. My website, darustrong.com. My YouTube channel, just search Phil Daru. You'll see all my new YouTube videos out there. And then my podcast is Fight Strength Podcast. It's on all podcast networks.
Love it, man. Love it. Phil, dude, thanks so much, man. Thanks for putting us. I feel like we're still in the important part of the day because we started at noon.
Yeah, we're still good, man.
We just made it.
Still can do it.
Made the cut.
Yep.
But dude, thank you so much, man. And super, super grateful to have met you, a couple of weeks ago with Eric, man. And hopefully we'll get to do a lot of stuff here together in the future. Hey, everyone that's listening or watching, if you like listening and watching our podcast, make sure you tune in. I think this is episode number 44. I did it. I counted, man. Guys, follow us on Instagram at Phil Kursmanich, at Wade Waddick. Make sure you go and follow Phil. If you love our podcast, make sure you subscribe on whatever avenue you're listening or watching on. And until next time, we're out.
7-5.